All right, earlier this week, the heads of some of the largest retailers met with President Trump to warn him that his tariffs could soon lead to empty shelves at big box stores. But what about the impact on small businesses here in the United States? So joining me now is the former head of the Small Business Administration, Isabel Guzman. She's also the chair of the Global Risk Advisory Council and the founder and president of Avenida Advisors. Thank you so much for being with us, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Vlad. Great to be here.
So this is your first interview since leaving President Biden's cabinet, and now you're in charge of a body of more than 100 former head of states, ministers, and other public affairs leaders. Can you describe for us how these leaders are reacting to this evolution of tariffs that have happened over the course of the nearly 100 days of the Trump administration?
That's right. And we have these preeminent leaders from over 17 countries across Latin America, Europe, Asia, representing over 58 industries and really reflecting on what are the reputational risks that firms are facing now in this environment. And now, especially looking more closely at the impact that tariffs are having on firms that are doing business abroad.
So given your perspective on international economies, who is being most affected by these tariffs? I mean, clearly American consumers are going to be affected, but it feels like there are different levels of pain, and the way that countries operate and the way that some economies differ from ours may also play an impact in how those tariffs impact them versus how they impact us, which I think is going to be hard felt.
It is going to be hard felt, and especially we are talking about small businesses in particular who have to face these risks and uncertainty without the cash reserves that typically larger businesses may have, or without the supply chain diversity that larger businesses may have. So clearly, their impact is going to be stronger. The short-term pain is going to be much harder felt on all of them. And across the board, as businesses who export abroad, and 1 million small businesses export their products and services abroad, or those who import, 2/3 of small businesses rely on some sort of imported product or service. And so truly the impact is going to be wide sweeping across the board. And as they're doing business abroad and trying to still engage in these markets, there are risks, reputational risks for the United States right now that is seen as a challenging partner. And so they're facing it for their brands and their images that are so tied to the United States, trying to do business abroad. That's really coming out as an emerging risk that brands are going to have to manage, trying to figure out how to best support their brands in markets that they typically trade in.
What is in your opinion, the risk that countries no longer see the United States as a reliable trading partner and thus begin to trade with each other, even if it means smaller revenues, because there are very few countries with the size and the consumer appetite of the United States, but given the volatility, there may be some companies and some small business owners who don't want to engage in the volatility that is inherent in the Trump administration and thus begin to look at other ways to do business.
Well, and that's what we're hearing from across the world, that it is risky doing business with the United States. And so there's concerns about whether or not they should continue to engage. And I do believe that as these small businesses in particular spend so much time and effort trying to enter in markets abroad or import from countries abroad in their supply chains, that takes a lot of effort. And so truly, this up and down in this trade tariff discussion is really having an impact on them, and the volatility is going to have lasting effects, regardless of where we land as we're going up and down in escalation, de-escalation. The damage has been done for a lot of these businesses. And you're hearing from small businesses in particular who've maybe already had to abandon product abroad that they were planning on shipping in and trying to figure out how they could sell it in other markets already, or businesses that are changing their forecasts and planning for the future, betting on not being able to sell in markets abroad. So this is really having an impact. And if you can imagine, a small business owner in particular that has to weigh all these challenges themselves, this is one that is becoming draining for so many of them, and may lead to early closures of businesses or massive debt.
Yeah, that was going to be my final question, which is, could we see small businesses fail? I talked to one owner of a small business on CBS Mornings Plus last week, and she was describing some of the material that she imports for her clothing line, zippers that come in from China, and for example, to give one example, and if they're not able to pass those costs along to consumers, because let's face it, Americans, the reason we shop at Walmart and Target is because you want to spend less. Maybe the big box stores are not as affected as a small business owner, but could we see these small businesses collapse and fail?
Yeah, and you see these large retailers, coming in trying to navigate these tariffs. The small retailers, don't have that voice, but they're having the same issues. And so, truly, they're trying to pivot to new supply chains here in the U.S., but that was difficult for them in the first place because they don't buy at the levels that larger businesses do, and they may not have the cash flow to to plan in advance and create that kind of inventory, deep inventory. So for small businesses, these questions, these challenges are much more intense, and frankly, they don't have the capital or the cash reserves to really play in the marketplace as risky as this.
All right, former Small Business Administrator Isabel Guzman, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.